first lesson is to show up on time. Thank you. For you? Okay. My name is Frank Collison. My pronouns are Laura, Gardner's husband. Before we start, two political figures in Minnesota were shot and killed today. Well, actually last night by a person posing as a police officer, and two others at another home were wounded. So I would like to just take a minute and allow you to do whatever you want to do as far as giving them a moment. Okay, thanks. These guys must have been wondering why we're so quiet. But you'll hear more about it. I want you all to leave with learning something today. I hope you will. But just in case, I'm going to start with a lesson that probably all Alaskans know. I have here a baggie of grass. And I'm sure some of you Alaskans know this. You know that? Yeah. Yeah? You take a piece of grass, and then I'm going to have someone come up and learn how to do this. I don't have enough for everyone. You just place it between your thumbs, like this, and then you... Oops, see, I blew that grass. Yep. No, that's not good. Let's get another one here. It's very handy for calling animals, and I learned this a long time ago. I think my father taught me. And it will...
Yeah.
Now, is there anyone here who's not from Alaska who doesn't know, has never done this before? Surely this, come on. You all know how to do this? Daniel?
I've never done it, I don't think.
Come up here.
If you teach him to do that, though, when he comes to visit me in Florida, he's going to attract the peacocks.
So, Daniel, what you do, you're just going to pin it between your thumbs like that, and you want it taut. And you want it so that your lips almost touch the grass, but not completely. Yeah, pin that between your, yeah. Oh, that has to, let me help you here. Okay, now pin it. Okay, that's good. And now try. Yeah.
Well, that's back there.
Yeah. We may have to give up because, you know, time is money here. Has anyone ever done this before? Yeah, pretty good. Good enough. Well, thank you for coming. Wow, I'm so glad. I was a little nervous. No one would show up at this hour. I did a little research first. First, I asked Laura, what do you think people want to hear about? And she said, oh, they want to hear about the famous people you've worked with.
No, I didn't say that. You said you wanted me to be here, so.
I didn't say I wanted you to speak. I did a little research, and the life expectancy of a film actor, apparently, according to Google, is 77.2 years. So I have outlived that by 0.3 of a year. So, and also, many of you probably already heard of this, the arc of a film actor's career, and I'm not just a film actor, I, of course, started in theater like all of you, it starts like this. Who the hell is Frank Collison? Let's take a chance on Frank Collison. Get me Frank Collison. Get me a Frank Collison type. Get me a young Frank Collison. Let's take a chance on Frank Collison. And finally, who the hell is Frank Collison? I don't know which step I'm on yet, but that is the arc. I want to do about 30 minutes of sharing some stuff with you guys, and then some of you already sent me questions. I'll answer those first, or at least try to touch on them, and then leave a little time so we can all get to where we need to be. And if you have to go early, of course, that's fine. So I just start with this so you know what the hell I've been doing, at least on film, those of you who haven't seen me. Before I do, these are my children. This is what I should start with. This was taken the day that Gabriel shook hands with Donald Trump at his commissioning. He said it was an out-of-body experience. So he is a Navy pilot, and he's now stationed in San Diego. He flies search and rescue helicopters. This is my daughter, Claire. She's our oldest. She is a trauma surgeon and is currently doing a fellowship in Long Beach area. And this is my daughter, Eliza, who, with her husband, lives in Newark, New Jersey. And their firm, she's an immigration lawyer, is handling the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. She's not directly involved with that case, but she is in charge of the Newark office and many, many, many cases. She called me one day and said, I have a trans client who, if we got them amnesty and they don't have to go back to their country because they've been killed. So all three of them helped to save lives, and I'm very proud of them, so that's why they're there on the screen. So I'm going to start with my demo. There's some stuff I'd like to have on the demo, but it's too old, so I've tried to put more current stuff, and this is what people who are thinking of casting me might look at.
Do you think you could keep running like this forever? And they call you the hero. We know who you really are. So you can leave now. You stay, you lose, and you do not do what Renzo says, you die. You stay and play the game, it's your choice. Looking at you, I'd say you better leave.
Hi,
Hi.
Noah, next door. Moving out?
Yeah, some of us are, sort of.
Well, I'd be lying to say I was sad to see you go. Not personal. Seem like nice guys, just houses full of renters aren't great for property values.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Good luck.
You too.
What?
You too.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't say. Mrs. Hogwallop up in R-U-N-N-O-F-T.
She must have been looking for answers.
Possibly. Good riddance as far as I'm concerned. I do miss her cooking though.
This stew's awful good.
You think so? I slaughtered this horse last Tuesday. I'm afraid she's starting to turn.
How do I feel about killing prostitutes?
Matthew 21. Tax collectors and the prostitutes are entering the kingdom of God ahead of you.
Religion's shit. Yeah, it's more honest work being a plumber.
You believe what my friends say are true, and yet you still say that we
I still say the work has to be done here on Earth.
It's judicial helter-skelter, man. We're talking 1693 Salem here.
Our investigator made the exact same point while riding a broomstick.
Oh, it's wild. Should I do that in court?
No.
I don't know. My hair is my spiritual identity. It's who I am.
You're so much more than your hair. Trust me. You're gonna look great.
Okay, if I do this, how much are you gonna cut? The float test has been proven to be extremely common.
So a lung could test negative and even then still float?
Absolutely, man. Heuristically speaking, it's not only possible, it's likely. But just because there's 1 out of 10 doesn't mean all the others follow suit. You gotta find that one. Tune it in.
You've gone totally insane.
Insane, little girl? All that I do is with extraordinary reason.
Just when you think it can't get any worse, it does.
What do you mean?
About a year after Frankie died,
My second wife couldn't take it anymore. She left me. And I had a nervous breakdown.
I was thinking, if you had to have sex with another man, it would make Jimmy jealous.
Like with who?
Well, let's say, with me, for example.
And that's a cut. Everybody take 5.
Next week. That's my demo. There's really a story behind all of those, but one I'll share. The whole 10 yards one. So I went in for that. That's the one with where I said, for me, for example, I played the kind of not very bright Hungarian gangster. And the director called me at home, which had never happened before. He said, I really want to use you, but they want to go with John Turturro. And I thought, there's no way in hell John Turturro's going to take this role. He said, keep me posted. So he called about a week later and he said, yeah, now they're thinking Steve Buscemi. Yeah, that's possible. That's possible. Then about another week, my agent called me and says, oh, they want you to come in for a day. I said, oh, do I have the job? He said, well, they'll pay you for the day. It's like, yeah. So I went in, and it was a scene where I'm tied to a chair, and Bruce Willis and Matthew Perry are lying naked in bed together. And Matthew Perry says, why am I naked and why does my ass hurt? And I say, a little male bonding. And he thinks I'm misunderstood what's happened here, and he says, I fell on the stairs, I fell on the stairs. And so I improvised on that day. What stairs? And at the end of the day, I got the job. So, it was a nightmare. Everyone tried to direct the show. Yeah, you might have been in an experience like that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a few stills, and which won't tell you my whole bio, but who needs that? But first of all, I want to start with this one. This is my father, and he is in the Aleutian Islands in World War II. He was studying with Max Reinhardt in Hollywood. He got drafted and ended up in the Aleutians as a medic. And I never talked too much about that experience, but it's lovely to know that my father was up here at one point. And I shouldn't close that, should I? Where is it? Oh, I have to find it again, sorry. My first summer, I was at a tent theater with my family, with my mom and dad. They were at Denison University, that's me, and that's the tent theater. And I was either a mascot or a carry-on prop, I'm not sure. I don't think I had any lines, but there's another shot of it here. So basically what I'm telling you is that I started with a life in the theater and had continued that. So that's where I continue. I love that shot. That's the tent where the theater was performed. We went back many years later and did another season there when I was about 13. I wasn't cast either in that either. And then my dad was an actor and a playwright, and we were doing shows at the same theater, Barksdale Theater, and I was on the main stage. His was in the little black box, and so they did a publicity shot there. That's before I grew a beard.
What was his first name?
Say what?
What was your father's name?
John Collison.
Okay, we'll come up.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much you'll find. He was never published, but he was produced, and that's a whole thing I could go into. I need someone who knows how to do this stuff.
With 3 fingers, you'll get to where you want to be.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so my father played Lincoln. He had a one-man Lincoln show. My parents went to school, or he worked with Hal Holbrook in university. So that's me as Willie, and it was the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's inauguration. My dad was hired to play Lincoln, and We stayed at the Willards Hotel in the same suite that Lincoln stayed in that night. Pennsylvania Avenue was blocked off. There were 100,000 people there. And at the inaugural dinner afterwards, we met Carl Sandburg, the poet, which was amazing. And what's the three-finger deal? I
Just
give
swipe
up.
with 3 fingers and then take you over.
Yeah,
Take
close
you
enough.
there.
I'll skip that one. Okay, I started, when I came to LA, and this is one thing I'll talk about a lot, is I found a lot of us from another theater, a lot of us had been in American Conservatory Theater, ACT, not the ACT here, but in San Francisco, and we started a theater company called Pacific Resident Theater, and this was a shot of we did Merry Wives of Windsor on the Santa Monica Pier. I built the set. I'm a big proponent of hair acting. And you can't really see it in this shot, but I did the whole thing with the hair like this. Also, I had a Band-Aid across the bridge of my nose because I think that's always helpful. It was fun. Then we did Beggar's Opera. That's Claire, the trauma surgeon. She wasn't frightened of me like that, but she was frightened of me when I wore a derby in some other movie. Lori knows that's my first wife, the mother of my children, and like that. But the story about that, well, I'll go to one of the first lessons I ever learned. And this is my first one. Is my mom used to say, if you miss a rehearsal or performance, it better be for a funeral, and it better be yours. So, I was doing this show, rehearsing it, but my father was terminally ill with lung cancer. And he was in the Bay Area, and I was there. And I was there at the bedside when he died. The next morning I had the dress rehearsal for Beggar's Opera. So, of course, what did I do? I got in my car and I drove to LA, and I walked in, and everyone was there. I'm relating to what you read the other day, your father, my father. Everyone knew what had happened, and they embraced me, and then we said, let's start the rehearsal. And that's, I think, one of the key signs that theater is in your blood. What's this? Oh, I just show this because I did the makeup for this. Yeah. And I got to consult, it's always great. That's another thing that I'd like to touch on is we all know that theater is a collaborative thing. We're here collaborating with the writers, and that we serve the writers. That brings them to mind. The other one of my earliest lessons was from my father. When I would leave for rehearsals, he'd be sitting in his chair and he'd say, "Respect the word." And I've always learned that's why at the monologue workshop, we're on your case if you start rewriting. But this was a lot of fun. And I consulted with the costumer about what I would, what the look of the costume would be. I just can't get that three-finger thing. I don't know what that is. Okay, so this is my first and only, well, I had one other kiss, but I did a show for 6 years, which pretty much allowed me to have a middle-class life. Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. That's my only, well, I was married to Myra, and the lesson of that was I went in for the audition, and they asked me what's going on. We were pregnant, my wife was pregnant with our second child, and I just started talking about that, and it went on, and finally somebody said, Beth, we should have him read. And so I read, but I'm pretty sure that I got the role before I started reading. So when you go into an audition, sometimes it's how you present, and there's many people in LA will teach you what you're supposed to do and not do. But I think the main thing that I've learned from that lesson was you come in as your authentic self, you have a life, and you also demonstrate that you are easy to work with and that you're going to solve their problem, because that's what they're stressed about. Oh my God, we got to find someone for this role. And so I solved their problem. And many years later, the producer of the show, the creator of the show, told me, you know, Frank, I really fought for you because they wanted to use someone like higher up the food chain. And then, like the 5th season, they were going to cut my part, but the fans on the show wrote in, and Les Moonves said, "What the hell's going on?" to the producer, and I'm getting all these letters, and so they decided not to cut me because of the fan support, which was great. Okay, I'll skip that one. American Horror Story, 2.5 hour makeup job. I might as well tell this story now. It's about standing up for yourself. This could happen in theater and it can happen in film. In this, I was going to be shot in the head. And the day that that was supposed to happen, I came in and there was a stunt guy at the next table in the dressing trailer, the makeup trailer, and he was being made up for me. And I said, "Oh, you're doubling me." Yeah, I'm doubling you. So we get to the scene where I'm supposed to be shot in the head, and the director, I hear the director say, "Oh, I don't want to use the stunt guy. I want to use the actor." They didn't ask me. And I could have said, "Excuse me, I need to call my SAG representative." Or, "Yeah, I've hired a stunt double. It's a stunt." But it was Ryan Murphy. It was the first time I'd worked for Ryan Murphy. So I said, "Okay." And I did it. It wasn't too big a deal. But much earlier, I was doing a Planters Peanuts commercial, and they said, "Okay, you're falling out of the flat-bottom boat into the swamp, playing a banjo. You're falling backwards into the swamp, and then you come up out of the water. You spit the water out of your mouth, and you say, and they go, 'Good with a drink.'" And the stunt guy said, "Okay, so you can fall here, but don't fall here." It's like 18 inches apart. And I said, "Why not there?" He says, "Well, there's a cypress root about 5 inches under the water." And I said, "So I think this is a stunt." And he said, "Yeah, it is." And so they paid me for the stunt. I still had to take the risk, but at least I stood up for myself a little bit. So, and some of you, especially women, I thought of this with the Brian Murphy case, is, especially women, but it can happen to anyone, are going to be asked to do something you're not comfortable with. And that's getting better with intimacy coordinators and that sort of awareness, but it still exists. And if you're in the union, you have someone to back you up. If it's an independent film and you're not in the union, you still have to stand up for yourself. Arthur can probably speak to all of that about stunts. I'm sure he's been asked to do stuff. This was interesting. That was Mobsters with Anthony Quinn. It was like a film history lesson to work with him. I played his right-hand assistant, and it was great fun. We had a scene. We were Italian mobsters, and we were at a Jewish wedding because we were trying to be allied with the Jewish mobsters. And the director said, "Okay, just you go through the buffet line, just improvise stuff." I didn't even know where the camera was. And so he's doing most of the talking, he's looking at the food, and he's spooning it out, and we don't know what the hell it is, because it's all Jewish food. And he goes, "What's this?" I said, "I don't know, boss." "And what's this?" "It looks like some kind of meat, I don't know." And then he scoops up a matzo ball and holds it up. I said, "What's this?" "I don't know." He says, "It looks like brains." Which is perfect because he'd seen a lot of brains. And it was during the first Gulf War, and he said, he told me a story about how he met Saddam Hussein. I said, "What was he like?" "He was an asshole. He hit on my wife. I told him I'd kill him if he did it again. And then we were friends."
Oh my God.
He told me about stories about being smuggling out of Mexico under a load of coal. I'm not sure I believe that. This was fun, a fun project. Unfortunately, it's called Hope Springs. Mary Steenburgen played my wife, and she's one of the famous people that's really, really nice. And I can combine this picture with a story about character actors. When I was doing a summer training program at ACT, the guy who taught dialects, who's an Irish actor, he comes up to me in the hallway, says, "You and me will work because we got the mugs." I said, "The mugs?" He said, "The mugs." And he was right. The example of this, and this sounds like name dropping, and it is, But so Mary was our social director. We were in a small town called Hope. The movie is called Hope Springs, about 200 miles north of Vancouver. And Mary said, "Okay, we're all going to a diner. We're going to have dinner, and then we're going to do karaoke." And so we're sitting down at the table, and the waitress comes up, and she says, and then she looks at me and goes, "Oh my God, Dr. Quinn, give me a piece of paper." And she runs off into the kitchen, and who are the other people sitting at the table? Mary Steenburgen, Colin Firth, Minnie Driver, and Heather Graham. And I'm going, and they're just going, and I said, "Well, you know, I come into their houses. I've been coming into their houses every Sunday for like 5 years now. So, and they don't have a movie theater here, so they probably never seen you, Colin." And she comes back with a piece of paper. "Okay, make it out to," and I'm trying to sign it, and then she goes, "Oh, you're Minnie Driver, right?" And Minnie goes, "Yeah." She's, "Okay, so." But the real highlight of the night was going to the karaoke, and Colin Firth and I singing "Ground Control's in Major Tom." We picked it because he's a Brit, and we didn't have to really sing for that. Let's see. Oh, this was a nice experience. One day, Laura filmed me in a hotel room in Australia for this character that was out in the field, I'm not sure why, with his brother fighting a brush fire, and it's a Hitchcock. And so Anthony Hopkins, did I get it right? It's Anthony. Yeah. It is Hopkins, not the Queen. Anyway, I show up on set like 6 a.m. This woman comes over and says, "Mr. Hopkins would like you to join him for breakfast." It's like, wow. And so I went in his trailer, we had breakfast, and then we talked about theater. He was just a wonderful person. Also a stunt story. I got hit in the head. My brother hits me in the head with a shovel and kills me. So we practiced with the prop shovel, which had a wooden handle, but the blade was all rubber. And he smacks me in the head, but the trouble was that the rubber thing went and like this and popped me in the ear really hard. And at the end of the day, I was walking by the stunt coordinator, and he says, "How'd it go?" And I said, "Well, I think I got hurt." And he said, "Well, you got hurt, but you didn't get injured." I said, "I fail to see the difference." He said, "Well, just take some Tylenol." But stunt guys are pretty macho guys. I don't know. And then what is this? This was, I mentioned that. That was the one where I got hired. That was a very difficult movie because everyone started directing the movie. Bruce, of course, was the producer, so he would step in after the director had directed the scene, and then Matthew Perry started directing the scene. And then, so I just kept quiet and kept my head down. But it was okay.
You kind of look like Keanu Reeves in that picture.
Yeah, seriously.
Who looks like Keanu Reeves?
You.
Oh.
In that one last picture you showed.
Thank you, I guess. This was a really great experience. The Village with M. Night Shyamalan. The first movie I got cast in without an audition was Wild at Heart. And we'll talk about, David Lynch. But the second one was M. Night Shyamalan cast me without an audition, just from my reel. And I got to work with Bill Hurt and Brendan Gleeson and Joaquin Phoenix and Adrian Brody. It was a great cast. And we got to work for 2 weeks before any camera rolling. We spent a week out in the Pine Barrens, living in tents, and cooking food out there, and skinny dipping with Sigourney Weaver. That was the highlight of my whole time. And then one of my favorite experiences, Johnny Cash worked on Dr. Quinn for 3 or 4 episodes. Such a gentleman, and in pain at that point. He, in order to get up in the stagecoach, we had to put him in the camera dolly and lift him up to get him in. And one Friday night, we're just sitting there. They'd gone off to shoot something else, and I said, "Johnny, what do you?" I was could call him Johnny by then. I said, what are you doing this weekend? He says, oh, they got this tribute for songwriters going down there at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. And I said, oh, that sounds like. He says, do you want to come? And I said, sure, I'll have tickets there for you. So I called my wife, get a babysitter. Okay, Johnny Cash. And June Carter was on the show too. And we get there, and he's like second row center, and we're third row center right behind him, and I'm introducing my wife. And I look back about 30 rows, and the producers of Dr. Quinn are back there going like, you do that? So, anyway. So that's the end of that slideshow. How many of you are Alaskan actors? God, a lot. Yeah. And how many of you are actors in some other locale? Yeah, right. Sometimes. So my first bit of advice, unsolicited, asked for advice, is why would you leave Alaska? Mm-hmm. We had a conversation the other day on the phone with Jill Bess and Jamie Nelson and Mark Robakoff and all these people you've met all week, Alaskan actors. They have very satisfying careers, I think you would agree, Jamie? You have a balance here. You may not make your full living at it, right? I know you're a male dancer part of the other time. But that's still kind of acting. But no, my point is seriously that the decision, okay, so I made my living as an actor, big deal. But the people that we work with here in Alaska are extremely creative, and the other thing is they don't ask permission to act, they create their own work. Jamie, as an example, you started the theater in Soldado?
My friends did, but yeah.
Yeah, but you're a part of it. Mm-hmm. So when I got to LA, that's what we did. We're a bunch of us, and we started a theater. It's now 40 years old, Pacific Resident Theater, and it's still going strong. And that's the thing that even if you're not in Alaska, that you may find yourself doing. Because the work flows from the work you do with people you have something in common with, that you have a common vision. That's what you want to do, and you form an ensemble and you begin to work together, and believe me, coming into a company where you don't know anyone, or that's what film work is, you don't know anyone there. You don't know how they work, but you have a company of people and you become a family, like that family that embraced me the day my dad died. How are we doing time-wise? Have I already exceeded my time?
No.
Pretty much, no? Well, it's 9:33. So I'm just going to quickly go through some other things that, these things that happened that I learned from. So I'm like 14, 15, I'm doing a show at the Sparksdale Theater in Richmond, Virginia, where I grew up. And opening night, I got this huge laugh on this one line. And it goes into applause. Next night, almost nothing. The show ran for like 2-3 months. And every night the director would come back and say, try this, try that. I never got more than a little laugh. So the lesson there, I think, is, first of all, don't work for the laugh, but understand that every audience is different. And don't push that. I did the summer training program at ACT, and there was an actress there who was teaching us, with her acting teacher, and she said, every actor should have a black box in which you store things that you know may be useful. And she cited an example for her of, it was the last argument I had with my husband before I divorced him. I put that in my black box. But for me, the one I remember is the day my dad died. I was referring to it. And when he died, my reaction was not what I expected. I was angry. Because Claire was 3 months old and I wanted her to grow up with her grandfather. And I thought, got to put that in the black box. What's another thing? So after I did my undergraduate at San Francisco State, it was right during all the chaos of Vietnam War. We did a show about the My Lai incident, which was one of the most formative plays I did. And then when I moved up to the Sierra Nevada, and we started a theater company up there, a summer theater. We literally built a theater up in the Sierra Nevadas and did 3 summers there. But so I stayed there, and I started being a big fish in a very little pond. The director would say, "Oh, we're doing Midsummer Night's Dream. What would you like to play?" And I'd say, "I want to play Puck." Wildly wrong for Puck. But we're doing Marat Sade. What do you want to do? I want to play the Marquis de Sade. Okay, we played Marquis de Sade. But I realized I was getting bad habits and repeating stuff and leaning on what I thought worked. And so I said, I got to get more training. So I went and did my MFA program at UC San Diego. And the lesson there that I learned was take what works for you and leave the rest. We were talking a little bit about it, Tiffany, we were talking about the teacher there had this way of teaching acting that I'd never heard anyone else do, but I found some of it valuable. And you're going to get that experience with every production you do and every acting teacher. The monologue workshop, you're going to get something from that, hopefully. And some of it won't be anything that helps you. Let me tell you what else. Other lessons do I have here? Find a good theater company. So when we moved to LA, we formed that theater. Find a good theater company, like-minded people, and if you can't find one, start one. Now that's the challenge. We were first starting Pacific Resident Theater. I woke up every morning. It was like, what am I going to do today for the theater? And that was my whole life. It was whole life. Eventually, started having a family, but work flows from the past and finding others who have similar vision. I told you the Colin Firth story. Yeah, I told you that. I told you the one about standing up for yourself. So let's pivot into questions, and I'm going to start out of fairness with the people who wrote in and asked ones. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Brian Lyke, L-Y-K-E?
Yep.
Is he here? No. Anyway, he said, I'm interested in hearing about what gives you strength during dark times. Right now. Help me out, Laura. Eric Gurnan? Gurnan. Get it wrong every time. His play was called Prayer Circle, and to me, prayer doesn't work, but action works. And also immersing yourself, finding projects that, Laura and I have been struggling with this. What do we do now? What can you do now? And during the strike, our actor strike, I would go 3 days a week and picket and support that, and finding things that, the other thing is that we all can do is to find plays that speak to this time. And I think we've seen a lot of plays this week, we all know, that speak to this. And that's something that we can do as artists. Tiffany said, sorry, what?
We shot 2 short films during COVID.
That's true,
and
yeah.
We did a web series in COVID.
Right.
So we shot things.
Yeah.
We did three projects.
Right, that's along the same line as don't wait to be invited to do something, create your own work.
But we did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were very busy. And we did a web series with Henry.
That's right.
They weren't all successful, but we
right.
produced we were involved
right.
in 4 things.
And if you're in a town that has film schools, and you don't have any film career yet, or haven't experienced, I had plenty of film experience, but this agent called me and said, would you do this MFA student film? And it sounded interesting. It was a sci-fi thing. We shot it. It was great. The head of the department was a good guy to make contact with. He was a producer. So you're always... So Laura is the queen of networking. I mean, she's somewhere, and in 10 minutes she'll know someone's blood type. I mean, she just networks like, and it's authentic. It's not like, oh, what can you do for me? She really connects with people, and you never know what's going to happen. So that's valuable. This sci-fi film. I just checked yesterday, it's on a website that does only sci-fi movies. It's a 12-minute movie. 350,000 people have seen that. That's amazing to me. Yeah. So Tiffany asked, she'd get a job that, trying to make this a job that pays bills better than it has for the past 15 years. I'm moving to a major market, Los Angeles. I'd love any financial, practical advice on being a working actor, and also that they're huge David Lynch fans. So I'll start with that. David Lynch is probably the kindest director I've ever worked for. He's so kind. When we did Wild at Heart, it was a 360-degree pan, and it was improvised every night. And he was just so kind. And then on Twin Peaks, he has this very gentle way. Before he does a scene, he just, in a very calm voice. I mean, he's a big proponent of transcendental meditation, I believe. And he said, okay, so you're going to come in, you'll come down the stairs here, and then he'll be in a chair, and then you hit him in the head, and then, he sort of narrates it for you very gently. And then what I really appreciated when I finished, traditionally when you finish and you're wrapped for good, some assistant will say, "Oh, that's a wrap on Frank Collison." It's like, yeah, okay. But he said the way he did it is he said stop the work, and he did it and stopped everything, and then just said, this is a wrap for Frank Collison. And he and M. Night Shyamalan have very loyal crews, which is another it's similar to having a loyal group of actors, if you have a loyal crew. And on Dr. Quinn, after 6 years, I mean, we knew each other, it was tight, so everything ran very smoothly. But to answer your other question, Tiffany, that's a lot of detail that I don't have time to go into, but you're going to find your way. And the main thing I would say is to find a good theater company that you like. Laura and I work with the Road Theater. There are a number of really good theater companies. Antaeus, Laura worked at the Fountain Theater. You'll find them out. Call us, we'll tell you. And if you get in with those groups, you're gonna make all kinds of contacts. But as far as making money, I've heard two different schools of thought. Somebody said, "Oh, don't ever have some other alternate job because then you'll fall back on that." And then someone said, "Well, you got to have a fall-back job because that's the reality." There are a lot of jobs. I don't know the other markets, but there are all sorts of things you can do as using your actor skills without necessarily being an actor. I substitute taught for 6 or 7 years in the South, in the LA Unified School District, and when I knew that I should probably stop substitute teaching, this kid looks at me one day and goes, "You're an actor, right?" And another kid goes, "Dressed like that?" Yeah, ooh. So David Lynch, I talked about that a little bit. Kate Rich, are you here? Dream role, Lear.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get a chance, we're doing workshopping it. We're doing a play called Lear in Tulsa, where I get to be an actor playing Lear, so I get to do the greatest hits of Lear without doing the whole play, which is nice. Roles you wish there were more of, I think that might have been your question as well. Older characters who were not comic relief or senile, thank you very much. Yes. Yeah. Old people. Josiah, you'll learn one day. Aspects of being a professional actor you love, which aspects are most challenging? I love the camaraderie of the actors. Most challenging, Orson Bean, who was on Dr. Quinn, he was great. Some of you know Orson Bean? He would say, first of all, we'd be on the set and he'd go, "Are we shooting this? I don't want to waste no acting." And then we'd have a really long day and he'd say, you know, they pay us for waiting. The acting we do for free. And he would make fun of us actors who would work for free and say, you don't see plumbers going, I installed a toilet the other day. I did it for free, but I think I learned a lot about my job. Which is another question of how far do you go continuing to work for almost nothing? Because one of the pieces of advice I have here somewhere is find a good theater company and work your ass off for no money. Yeah, it's true. Okay. What am I sick of on stage? Kinds of roles. Preachy, didactic. I don't know who asked that. Was that Kate? I don't know. I don't know. Preachy, didactic plays and adaptations of classics. I'm not totally against adaptations of classics, but I think you have to have a good reason to muck around with it. And writers who try to latch onto the latest trend. Just themes I'm drawn to, stories of little-known heroes. Daisy Jane Cooper was a woman she's my age. I went to school with, she integrated our school in Richmond, Virginia in the 8th grade, and I wrote a piece that included her, and she's an unknown hero. So maybe one day I'll write a play about Daisy Jane Cooper. Big break. There is no big break. Become known to casting directors, begin to get hired. Yeah, Dr. Quinn, I told you that story about the casting process there, but that basically allowed me to have a middle-class life, you know, and to put my kids through college. Do I write plays? Yes. Laura gave me a writing class for Christmas, and I wrote a play, and the teacher said, you should have started earlier. But maybe it'll be read here next year. I don't know, Wilson, but I'm learning so much from you guys, and I've used it. Why are Laura and I, this sounds like I wrote this thing. Why are Laura and I so accessible and willing to mentor while others are not?
We get paid the big bucks here.
Yeah. I guess my answer was, you might not have found the right people yet. And then I talked about networking, how Laura's a master of that. But one of the most important things, I think why we are, thank you for the compliment, is that I learned from day one, in theater and in film, you treat everyone with respect, whether it's a craft service person, who ironically on Dr. Quinn, craft service, you know, they put out the food, but that person's other job was shoveling the horse manure. And I didn't think those two jobs went together. Those are the questions that I had in writing. What occurs to you guys? Questions you might want to ask. If there's no questions at all, I'm in big trouble.
I don't want to take up too much time because I've already asked a great question that you answered so well.
Yeah.
Thank you. But one I have in response to something you said was you find the theater community that you connect with and you share values with. Do you apply the same thing to your agent or manager you're looking for?
Well, I found an agent who's very loyal, and she, Danny Trejo, if you guys know him, is one of her chief clients. She's Hispanic, and she represents a lot of Hispanic actors. She invites us to her birthday party. That was, I don't think I mean, yeah, you want someone who gets you. My first agent, we did in the early days. Nowadays, we could talk about this for the whole time about how do you get an agent and all that stuff. But the way we did it, we did showcases where we invite agents to come at right after work. We'd have a buffet there. We'd have our headshots there and our resumes. And this guy was interested in me, and so he said, I want to represent you. And then he said, let me ask you, do you actually, I stuttered in one of the pieces, do you actually stutter? I said, no, that was acting. And then my first commercial agent, the only reason I asked him to be my agent was because of his name, Zoltan Cosmos. And that's great, Dave. I'll call him up. Zoltan. So I called him, and So he took me on, and one of my first auditions from him, he said, "It's a Woolite commercial. You're the role of a fiber." And I said, "A fiber?" "Yes, a fiber." I said, "Synthetic or natural?" And he goes, "Oh, I didn't ask." I said, "That's okay. I'll come prepared for either way." And it was a bunch of tall, skinny guys who were just like tangled up with each other, and then the woolite washes over us and we relax. And I said, "For this, I got an MFA." So, all right, next question. Yes?
No, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I might, you had spoken about your character almost being let go on Dr. Quinn, and I'll maybe reveal something about myself. I'm a huge Dr. Quinn fan. Well,
I'm sorry.
with my brother.
I'm kidding.
So, I kind of wanted to ask with that, because knowing the show that, you know, at a certain point, Myra, you know, ends up leaving your character. What did you, is that at a certain point in kind of those long-term jobs, do you have an ownership of like what your character does?
Yeah, the writers in that show, once a year, at the end of the season, they would have each of us in and talk us about our arc. So we have that. They also, I don't know if it's true, because that's the only audition, first series I ever auditioned for, and I got it. Unbelievable. And so they would ask for suggestions, and I said, "Well, you know, Horace is like, he's cooped up in his office all the time, he never gets out. I think he wants to be one of the guys." So they sent me out on this episode where we're going hunting, and I got shot with an arrow through my arm. And like a year later, Mad Magazine does a spoof of the show, and my character is called Horrid, and I have an arrow through my chest, and I come in the Mad Magazine cartoon, and Dr. Quinn says, "Horrid, you've been injured." And I said, "That's amazing. In one look and you know what's wrong with me." And one of the other actors on the show, he comes up and he says, how did you get that gun?" I said, "I had nothing to do with that." Like I had bribed someone at Mad Magazine or something. But yeah, you do take ownership. I mean, the writers have a Bible, and there's only a couple of times when I spoke up, and I did it privately. They had Horace, good luck.
Thank you.
They had Horace doing something that I said, "Look," and I cited all the other things that had happened. And they said, "Yeah, you're right. I'll have you do that." And there was one other thing. Anyway, it's not important. But yeah, you protect your character. Yeah. Oh, so like season 5, I'm depressed and I'm going to commit suicide. So I'm holding the gun in my hand. So I point the gun at my head and say, no, it's an 8 o'clock show. You can't point the gun at your head. Okay. So I'll hold it like this and shoot the ceiling down or something. So we're shooting the scene, and then Bess Sullivan, the creator of the show, runs in and says, hold the work. I have a special announcement. We've been renewed for another season. Yay! And I look at the prop guy and I go, I'm rethinking this. And what was the other one? There was something else that happened. Oh, early in the first episode, Dr. Quinn is trying to get the trust of the people, so she's going around and finding problems they have. So Dr. Mike, I can't seem to hear very well. She says, let me look. And she pulls this big piece of wax out of my ear, and she holds it up, and I go, golly, that was in there? And they said, I'm not sure we could show earwax on an 8 o'clock show. So they actually had to call the production office to have a discussion about this. And the compromise was they wouldn't show it. They would I'd be looking off camera, and then you'd hear blink as she dropped it in a metal pan. Sort of crazy. But the other thing I want to say about that show was I didn't realize it eventually showed in 90 foreign countries. And we were somewhere in an airport somewhere, and there was this group of people, and they were all standing there with Bibles. And they always send over the person who doesn't know who the hell you are, and to ask, are you on that show? And I said, yeah. And they said, oh, we love the show. And I thought, and then they, quite often they would say stuff like, we're so glad it's a show for us now. And I would say, well, I think the values of the show apply to every religion, not just, I want to say, but I thought, I said, are you here for a Bible convention? Because they all had Bibles. And they said, no, it's a funeral of our mother. And the night she died, she and her and Dad were watching the show, and then they went to bed, and she died in her sleep. You know, we're killing people. but it showed me that the reach of the show. Or what I was with my daughter in Patagonia, tip of South America, and a ranger there on horseback in Spanish said to my daughter, who speaks Spanish, "Is your father on Dr. Quinn?" Like, Patagonia. So yeah, that was it was very interesting, the responses of people, or the waitress in yeah. Other questions? Yes.
How is the acting industry different today than what you established yourself?
Well, they're not hiring me much, so that's a very good question. Laura, what do you think?
When Frank was talking about how important it is when you go into showing your authentic self and go into auditions, there's very little opportunity in film and TV to do that anymore. I mean,
Self-taping.
probably one in 40 auditions, because it's all on tape. So you really don't have an opportunity to meet people. You just don't. And the way to meet agents is completely, the industry is completely turned around. And you talk about, with what's going on in the world right now, there's so little business. I mean, it's really, today, it's completely different. So, it was a way, the industry was it was exciting to get up in the morning and know you were going to probably have an audition. For Frank and me anyway, and certainly, back when I first moved to Los Angeles, and when I was in New York, I mean, it was being an actor, and so all the things Frank is saying, it was wonderful, but now, doing auditions and
Self-taping, almost exclusively.
It's all self-taping.
Although, just to interject, you can request a Zoom audition, but they only have a limited number of spaces. And then you do actually get to interact on Zoom, and they give you an adjustment. With self-taping, no adjustments. And a lot of people pay a lot of money to get self-taped. Yeah.
And I spoke to Kevin about it the other day, because he's, as a filmmaker, and I find myself auditioning against students of mine, or old students of mine, and it's a vacuum, because you send the tapes out, you don't know if you're getting seen, whether you have an agent or not, because it's all on a casting kind of thing.
Right.
So it's about having the fun of just doing the audition. So I send my tapes to all my friends. It's entertainment now. I send the auditions to my friends. Frank and I sometimes have a good time taping it. Sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're fighting about taping it. I do that. Don't look at me that way. Don't read that.
That eyelash out of place does not really matter, Laura. It's not going to mess up your audition.
Sometimes it's really fun, but it's cause for actors to have. It's about how do we live our lives now? Do we enjoy the work, whatever that is, or not? Because it is out of our control. So these questions are great, but it's not what it was. And if we go with the roll with it, it's okay. But there are a lot of actors who are walking around going, and there's no point. So for those who are considering coming to LA or another big city, you don't need to. As far as I'm concerned, you really don't. I think that's what Frank said. You don't need to, because so much is on tape now.
Yeah, and it's cool because the opportunities have expanded a lot, especially after the pandemic, for people like up in Alaska. And I remember feeling lucky that I was in Alaska self-taping before 2020, because it seemed like Alaska was like a little ahead of the curve. Interestingly enough, because we're always behind everyone else, because we're so far away.
Yeah. So I didn't even mention voiceover. We have a booth in our house. It's just a closet, but there's no exterior walls, so it's pretty good. I've actually recorded stuff in there. I did a thing for the National Institutes of Health that I was really proud of, because it was about health. And they used what I recorded in my own home booth. If you connect up with Audible, which I think is run by Amazon, you can submit auditions there and get hired. And some of them pay pretty well, some of them don't pay so well. You can work as a union person, but that's going to narrow the opportunities. But if you hone your craft as a voiceover actor, yes, you can get work. I'll say that you are mostly you're doing both. You're the voice, but you're also the engineer of the damn thing, and you have to learn all that skill. So, but once you do, you can do that. And there are also people in LA that make their living doing what do we call it, wah wah, and they're doing all the voices in the background. Or the other one is, and I've done a little bit of this, is foreign films now dubbing into English, and they do it a different way. They used to be you'd be in head. It's called ADR, automatic dialogue replacement. You'd be in there and you'd be watching it and you hear beep, 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 and then on the fourth beep you come in. But now they do it almost like karaoke, where you're watching the scene and they're not so concerned about you matching the lips because the other person is Lithuanian and you're speaking in English. So, but you're trying to get the energy of it, like you're in an outdoor place yelling to someone across the street. But that's another thing. We went way off on other things. Any other questions or thoughts? We have 9 minutes. No, we have 14 minutes. Yes.
I have another question.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher, and
Yeah.
all that's really helpful because I'm constantly thinking of where do I send my students? Where do I get really passionate students, and they learn some skills, and I want to send them on. What is the most responsible thing for me as a teacher? Just segment. Yeah.
I do Zoom classes, but if you're talking about are they high school students?
Going into college.
Going to college, then just look up the best. I mean, I can refer you to some of the best colleges, and if they're
that would be
there. And so these are you have Frank now. So those are the things that come to me during the conference, and you can email me. But these are great questions, and there are so many good colleges, including the ones.
Well,
there's
what is the name of the thing where you can audition for all?
BERDA, the University Regional Theater
Yeah,
Association.
yeah.
And there's another one on the East Coast, the West Coast, the Mid Coast, middle of the country.
Yeah, the challenge of finding a good teacher in LA especially, and there are people that actually got convicted of criminal misbehavior by being agents representing themselves as acting teachers, but and then down at the bottom of their little ad they'd say, no promise of employment. That was bullshit, that people were only going to see them as acting teachers because they wanted to get in front of a casting person.
But I can refer you to some places and some I just don't teach in Howard Klein anymore. So I won't necessarily refer you there for personal reasons. Good school, but I won't, it's personal. What did they say, that differences
Of opinion?
Artistic differences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's,
questions for Frank, but great question.
And I will say that I don't know how it's changed. My MFA program was years ago, but I would look for a program or a BFA program that does not just teach the arts of acting and performing, but teaches the skills of working, like how to find an agent, or at least has showcases where you end up at the end of a semester going to New York or going to LA and auditioning for actual people that can give you actual work. Yeah, I'm sure some of you know more about this than I do because this is stuff I don't do anymore. Any other questions and thoughts? Yes, Arthur.
I have another.
Oh,
Sorry.
yes.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, she's had a question. You have a question.
Mine isn't even a question, it's just a comment.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Again, I love David Lynch, so I wanted to ask about your audition for Twin Peaks because you already worked with him on Wild at Heart. I heard he tends to bring the same people back.
Yes.
Did you audition for Twin Peaks? Okay.
No, I talked to someone. His right-hand person, Sabrina Sutherland, is wonderful. And every month, a bunch of us get together for a meal.
Oh, awesome.
Now, the big name people don't come to those meals, but a bunch of us do, and I've never had that experience before with any other movie or film. So they form a community, but that's true. M. Night Shyamalan does that. Coen brothers, I wish they'd do that. They kept joking that they were going to do a spin-off with Wash Hog Wallop. Oh, Mark Robakoff called me and said, hey, I Googled Wash Hog Wallop, and guess what came up first? Someone selling T-shirts with your face on them. And COVID masks. And my line from the show, they got this thing called a depression going on, I got to do for me and mine. It was changed for they got this thing called a pandemic going on. So I called my agent and said, can they do that? She said, no, I'll look into it. She never did. Anyway, your comment, Arthur.
My comment was just that we have a connection that I didn't realize, I think, until now. I thought we met in 2012. My very first full-length play that actually got produced was produced at Pacific Reservoir Theatre.
Which was?
So, Past Curfew.
Didn't see it. It must have been, was it after my time? What year was it?
2006, I think.
Could have been after my time, I forget. I moved way far away, so I didn't, but I still keep in contact with him. Yes, behind Arthur, yes.
So you trained as a theater actor.
Yeah.
And you got your MFA in theater.
Yeah.
So did you train to learn, how did you learn to be a film actor? Did you train, was that just like you learned on the job? Or?
On the job.
Also, the second
On the
part is,
job.
what do you
And people,
find
yeah, people
are
always
the
ask that.
challenges
Yeah.
between how do you manage being acting on stage versus acting on film?
My first thing, I think, was for Weird Al Yankovic. I played a edible underwear salesman. And I remember that. Because my tongue turned red. And I started acting before they said action. That's how little I knew. But I didn't find it as hard as people assume it is. But the biggies are almost no rehearsal, very technical, and you are a small part of there could be 120, 200 people on the set, and your talent. Some of them don't even know your name. But you come prepared, and you use your theater skills, but you realize the microphone is 2 inches, or it's not 2 inches, it's taped right to your shirt. So in a way it's freeing because you don't have to worry about projection or any of that. And it's frequently done out of sync, out of chronological order. Because they're going to shoot all the scenes in the pool hall first, and then your death scene, they'll shoot that first. And whatever. So I don't really, it didn't seem like a big deal to me. But just to learn the politics and the language of like having a second team. See, they have a second team who stands there for hours while they set the lights, but you're back in your trailer. Or let's go back to one. Or when I was doing with Myra, she was about 5 feet tall and I'm 6'3", and they say, we want you to Groucho in. And I learned that. Does anyone know what that is? So in order to hold us in the same shot, she's here, I'm here, I would walk in like this. Now, they don't show that part, but then we're in the same shot. There was some other trick. There was something that totally unrelated, but some old actresses always try to get someone, probably in your first scene, to say your name, because a lot of times they cut that part where your name is spoken. So get someone to say your name. So I'm shooting this movie called, what's the one with the horse? With the guy that was in, anyway. J.K. Simmons was in it? Anyway, I played this character named Texas Jack Omohundro, who was a bullwhip. And, I got that one without an audition. What was it?
Hidalgo?
Hidalgo, right. And that was not an audition. And they said, he's a bullwhip specialist, real guy, real history. He worked with the Buffalo Bills Wild West show, and he snaps a bullwhip and snaps a cigarette out of someone's mouth. And I said, do I have to do that? He said, no, you don't do any of that. So I realized that no one had said my name, and we're shooting a scene where we're on the train, and the grips are shaking the train, and we're playing poker. And the director says, you know, you're going to win the hand. You should probably say something when you win the hand. And I had an idea. I said, how about I lay down 4 jacks, and I say, and that, gentleman, is why they call me Texas Jack. Thank you very much. And he said, good. And we did it, and that was the only line of mine that was in the movie. But at least they knew who Texas Jack was.
You got 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yes.
What is the ultimate greatest no-no thing, the sin that you could commit that would make you unhireable, or like no one would touch you or pick you up for any kind of role?
Well, nowadays I would assume it was sexual harassment or sexual things like that. That's a biggie, and you hear more and more people, because I think more and more people, and we have. I really think that intimacy coordinators are important. They're like stunt doubles for intimacy. Other than that, I mean, quite honestly, there are big stars who are horrible to work with, and I'm not going to name the ones I've worked with, but they continue to work because they're bankable. But I don't know, really. I think, really, you kind of would know it. Yeah, just stuff that's, yeah. Or, I suppose, well, I won't name names. There was an actor or actress on Dr. Quinn who got let go because they weren't prepared. But that wasn't anything to do with anything they did wrong necessarily at like moral turpitude. It was just they weren't really working out. Yeah. Anything else?
Yes. Just to piggyback off of my earlier question about taking ownership, have you ever found yourself wishing you could rewrite your lines? Now that you're a playwright, have you kind of seen that in your characters? Where you're like, ooh.
I never, no, I think because of my father's voices back there saying, respect the word. I've never, no, I've never thought about, you just make it work. You know, you may not think it's that well written, but that's your job, especially in film. I mean, in theater, it's more collaborative. And if you're working on a new play, yeah, sure. We did that with this show that I'm working on called Lear and Tulsa. And we made all sorts of changes. But that's a collaborative thing then.
2 minutes.
Yeah. Yes.
How much would you say that your MFA program helped you in propelling you into your career?
There were 10 actors, 2 directors, 2 playwrights, and a dramaturg. I believe I'm the only one of the 10 actors who's actually working as an actor now, still. I'm going to write a book about, I was thinking of writing a book about all the actors who have transitioned to other careers. I know a lot of actresses who've transitioned into being therapists or teachers, and there's no shame in that, you know? I mean, that's a perfectly legitimate thing to do, but it's, then there are people that, actually I'm straying from your question. I think, well, one of the things is, and someone wrote an article about it, I think the head of the Yale theater department said, you don't have no chance unless you come to Yale or Juilliard. Forget it. Any other MFA program would say, F you. You know, yeah, you want to find a good program that speaks to you, and it's a two-way street. It's not just you begging to get in, it's you perhaps seeing who the alumni are. I don't know, it's been so long since I've been in an MFA program. I don't know exactly what you do, but I'm sure you can get advice on that. But you've just finished your BFA, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so what are you going to do now?
Currently the plan is to finish off my lease, pay the bill, and then go to LA. And
Okay, we'll see you there.
Yeah, and see what happens.
Right, and on that note, we are done. Those of you in the monologue workshop, we will see you at
10:45,
10.
or, actually 10:40 would be better. 10:40.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.